You are listening to the Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast with Aqua Alex. On the Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast, any and everything tropical fish and aquariums will be discussed. From freshwater to saltwater, cichlids to clownfish, Aqua Alex has you covered. What tropical fish topic is up for discussion today? Let's find out. Aqua Alex, take it away.
You are tuned in live to Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast here on Spreaker. This is a live episode where any and everything can happen. One thing is for sure, when Aqua Alex goes live, it's time to chat tropical fish. What tropical fish topics do fish keepers have in store? What questions do tropical fish keepers have for Aqua Alex to answer? Find out right now here on Aqua Alex Live, a fun live interaction podcast series exclusively on Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast on Spreaker. Enjoy the show. And now, please welcome to the show, Aqua Alex Cardinale. The show goes live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take it away, Aqua Alex.
Hello, tropical fish keepers. Welcome to Aqua Alex Live, our second edition of Aqua Alex Live here on Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast. I'm your host, Aqua Alex Cardinale, and I have another interesting special guest fish keeper joining us today. He breeds a lot of interesting South and Central American cichlids, and he's been in the aquarium hobby for quite a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Gabriel Gomez. Gabriel, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to have you on the show. It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's an honor for me.
So how did you get into the aquarium hobby?
Well, it all started since I was young. I was always fascinated by the marine life. At some point, I wanted to actually be a marine biologist, but life steers you in different ways, so that didn't happen. But my wife decided to give me a 20-gallon tank as a gift, and that's what started everything. I started out with tetras, rams, and basically just fell in love with the whole ecosystem you create in a tank. So I started to get into bigger tanks, and I started basically, how do you say? Oh my God, my mind went blank there for a moment. I actually got into researching all different types of fish, especially cichlids. I fell in love with cichlids, especially South America. And that's what I've been keeping now. And I got to a point where I got to 13 tanks.
Nice, that's a lot of fish tanks.
Yeah, a lot of maintenance. Wasn't easy. But still, when you love something and you do it out of pleasure, it's not really work. To me, it was my time with the fish. Like that personal connection you have with them, making sure all the water parameters are correct, keeping their water clean, making sure the filters are working correctly. So there's so much to it that I had to learn even water chemistry.
That's very true. That's the best thing about the aquarium hobby is it's fun and you learn a lot as you go.
Yeah, no, I made a lot of rookie mistakes. I'm not going to lie. Unfortunately, I have killed a lot of fish. I'm not proud of it, but it's part of the learning curve. I mean, the thing is not to get discouraged from it. Because, I mean, at the beginning, you're going to have losses, but that's how you actually learn. You learn from the mistake you made. Like, my first mistake was overpopulating a 20-gallon tank. I mean, and I didn't even cycle it, my first tank. So that was my first pretty much lesson there. And my biggest advice to anyone starting the hobby: cycle your tank. Not just throw fish in there. And make sure the fish you're putting in it are adequate for the size of your tank.
Very well said, because a lot of people like to throw Oscars and Pacus and things of that nature in small tanks.
I would say that Oscars, Pacus, Green Terrors, Red Devils, Midas are the ones that people make the biggest mistakes with. I'd say it's the most common one I see. And it's very abusive for the fish. Plus, keeping the water parameters in the small tank is a lot harder than a bigger tank. Maintenance in a bigger tank is a lot easier, even though it's a bigger tank. But my trick is overfiltration. Never go wrong.
I agree with you 100% on that. So what kind of fish do you keep?
Well, right now I keep a couple different species. Most are cichlids. I mean, I'd say about 90% of them. So I have a discus tank. I have 5 discus there from Jack Watley. I've grown them since about 3 inches. Now they're hitting at least 5 inches. They're starting to pair up. I also have flowerhorns. That's my passion. I love flowerhorns because they are the most unpredictable fish you can have. Because they will look one way when they're young, but as they grow, they go through so many mutations that it's incredible to watch them grow, especially when you see before and after pictures. And not only that, their personality. They actually interact with you. Like, they get to know you. My flowerhorn reacts to me. Anyone else who gets close to it, it'll hide or it'll get aggressive. It all depends. So fish are pretty smart, especially cichlids. Then I also I have a breeding pair of Cuban cichlids, which I fell in love with because of their pattern, their color, and the scarcity of Cuban cichlids. I mean, you don't see them abundant in local fish shops, so it's a pretty rare fish. You mostly got to get them from a local breeder or order them online. And my dream is to actually cross a flowerhorn with a Cuban cichlid and be able to make a full black and white flowerhorn. But it's not that simple. Breeding fish is something that is quite difficult when you're into South American central cichlids and hybrids because of their aggressiveness. If they don't pair, either the female won't like him and attack him and he will eventually kill her, or if the female's too big, she'll eventually kill the male. And I also have one Midas. It's a pure Midas, one of the very few Midas breeders that has a pair from Jeff Rapps. Jeff Rapps, as we know, is very well known for pure South American and Central cichlids. And that is, I'd say, my second prized fish. Very nice male. He's about 5 inches now. Just working on him, keeping him as comfortable and healthy as possible. Because they're not easy to come by.
That's awesome. So you have quite the collection. The Cuban cichlids are very nice. They're a very nice rare cichlid, and Midas are very cool as well.
Yeah, no, Midas and the Cuban cichlids, to me, they're You know, discus are known as the king of the hobby, but I would still put Midas, Cubans, and Flowerhorns up there. For me, my top 5 are Flowerhorn, Discus, Cuban Cichlids, Midas, and it's rare for me to say, but I love Rams.
That's awesome. So that brings me to my next question. What do you like about cichlids?
Well, most cichlids have the same or similar personality as a flowerhorn. Since a flowerhorn is a hybrid that does come from South American and Central cichlids, they have their own personality. They interact with you. Like, you can play with them around with your hands. You can throw like toys into the tank, and they're very interactive. And also, I like the size they get. I mean, when you're looking at South American cichlids, not South American that much, but more of the Central American cichlids, Texas, Midas, Red Devils, they grow. People don't see that, but these fish can reach up to 13, 14 inches easily. Like I said, my friend that had Midas from Jeff Raps, that his name was, the Midas name was Sosa, rest in peace. That guy was a good 14 inches. And he was a beauty. And his personality was amazing. But luckily, we have his offspring, so we're capable of producing more of Sosa's offspring. So he still lives on.
That's good. He must have been an incredible looking fish.
Oh, he was. I can send you pictures of him, and it'll mind blow you, because he was creamsicle color. I don't know if you're aware of what they are. It means it has patches of orange, white, all throughout the body. So he's not one full color. So that made him even more unique. And his nuchal hump, or cock, how some people call it, KOK, no pun intended, but it was humongous. Again, no pun intended. But that's one of the unique things about them, and that I love, and that's why I love Flowerhorn so much, is the way their heads grow and the patterns they get is just mesmerizing.
That is true. Some flowerhorns have some amazing coloration and patterns. There's a lot of varieties of flowerhorns out there nowadays. I remember when flowerhorns first came out, there was only a few varieties, but now there's over 200, I think.
Oh, there's way more than that. The thing is that originally their base, let's say, breeder to start them was the Lujan, which had a lot of Trimac genetics in them, which is the red dragon, the traditional red dragon. That's why when you see them, they have a lot of Trimac traits to them. But as time went by, they started introducing other genetics. Midas is one they use. They also use Red Devils. Texas are used. That's to bring in the pearling. The Midas and the Red Devil are used for the fading gene. That's why you have, with flowerhorns, you have different types. You're going to have the ZZs, which are the sensu, which is basically considered the original flowerhorn. It comes straight from the red dragon. And then you had the super red dragon, which was bred for that coloration. That's why when you see them, they're so red. And so they're selectively bred. And then when you get a fry with a big cock or knuckle hump, obviously you would breed that one in and keep on getting that genetic stronger. So that's why you see some of these flowerhorns with humongous heads that you can't understand how they can even stay straight. And that is kind of a problem for them if they get too big, because it's very difficult for them to eat. And they can get a lot of infections because they'll injure themselves because they don't have a lot of notion of the size of their head. So they'll bump the lid or they'll scrape it with something. So it's good to have them with no decorations inside and to keep the water level a bit lower so that doesn't occur. Now, when we talk about different flowerhorn types, you have the ZZs, you have the Canfas. Those are the main two strains. Now, within those strains, you have a lot of branches. You have the faders, you have Canfa faders, you have ZZ faders. Usually, ZZ flowerhorns tend to be have a higher fertility rate. Now, Canfas, due to them being mixed with usually viejas, they, for some reason, I don't know the science behind it, are about 1% fertile. So if you get one fertile Canfa, you have a gold mine in your hand. So it's there's a big process. That's why they're so pricey, because and that's another thing, they're unique. You'll never see two flowerhorns the same, because there's so many genes mixed in at this point that from one batch, even from the same parents, they might not even look like the parents. You can even have the ugliest pair of parents and have the most beautiful clutch of fish. So it's a process, and then there's a lot of things that come into play. You gotta cull them, so it's very hard to breed. That's why I tend to breed, but I don't have much time for it. Flowerhorns is something that I've struggled breeding because of their aggressiveness and getting the right pair. Now, when you're looking at pures, like the Cuban cichlids, they're very easily to breed, as long as they pair up correctly. And they breed like crazy. They'll drop about 2,000 eggs about every 2 weeks. So you have to have a lot of tanks to actually keep up with that. A lot of people, unfortunately, that I know breed them and use their babies as basically feeders because they can't handle so many fish. But in a way, it's a healthy way of using them as feeders because you know how they've grown. You know, they're clean. There's no parasites because you've grown them and they haven't been around that environment. Another fish that I find really difficult to breed, and I have bred before, and this is when I was like 6-7 months into the hobby. I decided to get a breeding pair of discus. They were about 6 inches. They were beasts. They were almost the size of a plate. And they would breed weekly. Now, the fries are so sensitive that it's very, very hard to keep them alive. They get a lot of gill flukes, even though the water's pristine. So that's why you'll find that discus is an expensive fish. And that's not the only thing is you're going them out. You have to keep the water pristine, because if not, they get sunny or they'll get a football shape. The perfect discus has to be completely round. And then there's other things that come into play, like peppering. These black spots they get, a lot of people think it's a disease, but it's not. It's a trait from the pigeon blood, which is a strain of discus. So if you use dark backgrounds with them, you'll notice them more. And that's something that breeders are trying to get rid of, but again, it's genetics and it's very hard to play with.
That's some great information on flowerhorns and discus. That was some fantastic information.
Yeah, I went a little bit back and forth there from one fish to another, but it's just so many fish and then so much information in my head. It's a little bit hard to organize it, you know.
That's okay. That's wonderful, actually. It's great for our listeners because they get to learn a lot. So my next question would be for people who are interested in keeping cichlids. What would be your advice to fish keepers who want to keep aggressive cichlids?
First of all, research. Ask questions. Join groups specific to the species that you're interested in. Have a tank that is comparable for it. Because one thing that I hate hearing is, oh, I'm going to buy a Midas, let's say. I'm going to have it in a 20-gallon tank, but I'll eventually buy a bigger tank. And time passes, and the bigger tank never comes. To me, that's abusive to the fish. So if you're going to get into cichlids mainly are big fish. There are strains of dwarf cichlids that you can also stick to if you're not planning on getting into a bigger tank. Like, let's say you like cichlids. I mean, you can get into rams, which are dwarf cichlids. You can do apistogrammas. There's so many different subspecies, different colorations. You got the cockatoos. You have the forellis, the maceresi, the panduros. They're so, and they're very, very colorful to be a 3 to 4 inch fish, and actually very easy to breed. They pair up, or they also do harems. You can have one male with like 4 different females, and he'll breed with all 4. So my advice is, do your research. Make sure you have the adequate tank. Not only that, adequate filtration. Bigger the fish, more the weight. That's why I always stick by over-filtration. Example, I have a 55-gallon tank. I have 4 filters in it. I have 2 sponge filters, which is great for beneficial bacteria and to oxygenate the water. And I have 2 Emperor Marineland hang on the backs, which helps a lot too because it creates a lot of ripple in the water, which is great for the gas exchange. So the water will keep oxygenated, and all those toxic gases towards the fish will exit the tank. So keep your water changes. I'm a little bit extreme on water changes. I stay firm on 75% water change. All I do is I try to match the temperature. I don't let the water sit. I go straight from tap to tank. And I use prime firm believer in Prime. It's never let me down. What I do is I'll double or triple dose the tank just in case your city water has any changes in its chemistry, has more chlorine or it's higher in ammonia. Because Prime, what it does, it turns ammonia into ammonium, which makes it non-toxic to fish, and it gives the beneficial bacteria time to consume it and do the whole nitrifying cycle. So there's a lot to it when you're keeping a big fish too. The more water changes you do, the faster the fish will grow. There is ways of kind of speeding up their growth. You can do power feeding. It's not healthy, but a lot of people do it for competition fish to grow them out quicker. And temperature. What they'll do is they'll put the heaters a little bit higher than the recommended, but the fish withstands it. What it does, since fish are cold-blooded, their metabolisms increase. So they'll eat more, but they're going to poop more. So you have to be on top of those water changes. That's why I do once a week water change, and I siphon all the gravel to make sure I take care of all the excrement from it.
That's some incredible information. I agree with you on that. I like to do 75% water changes once or twice a week as well, because I find that it helps the fish stay healthy and grow quicker too.
Yes, it does, because the thing is, the fish, there is a misconception. Now, fish do release a hormone that controls their growth. So you have to dilute it or remove as much as possible. So by doing a 75% water change, you're basically removing most of it. So the fish will continue to grow. The more water changes you do, you'll notice that the fish grows a lot quicker. Cichlids, especially South American, Central cichlids, they'll grow approximately an inch a month for their first year. Sometimes a little bit more or a little bit less. So to keep that rhythm, you have to keep up with water changes. And also to keep the fish healthy, because when the water's dirty, the fish gets stressed, then non-beneficial bacteria starts to spread. That's when you start getting things like ick, or you can get hole in the head. I mean, I've dealt with different diseases throughout my time in the hobby. I've learned how to deal with them. The worst one I had was columnaris, which is a very tough one to beat because it kills a fish in a matter of less than 24 hours. And the only way of treating it is with furin 2 is the best way. But it also kills the beneficial bacteria in your tank. Quarantine tanks don't work in that case because columnaris will stay alive in the tank without a hose for up to 30 days. So you have to treat the tank. You have no choice. And if one fish got it, everyone else is going to get it. A few might not get it because they have very strong immune systems. But clean water is the key. But it's not foolproof. I mean, you will run into different diseases throughout a fish's life. Thing is to learn how to identify what they have and have the meds always at hand. Because by the time you get it, it costs the fish life. And it is one that is the most common, and I hear a lot of people dealing with it. And there's so many ways that, and medications for it. I don't believe in using medication for it. I've battled it, and I've always beat it with two simple things. Heat. I'll bring up the temperature of the tank at least to 87, 88 degrees, because what happens is you speed up the life of it. So what it does is when it unlatches from the fish, that's when it's vulnerable. The heat will kill it. But you're going to see an increment in the white spots on the fish. So you're going to feel like you're not helping it, but you actually are. By a week or two, you'll start noticing that the fish are clear again. Now, the second thing is water change. Change the water at least 2-3 times a week so you pull out all those floating, I forgot the name of the ick itself, but you extract it from the tank, especially from the gravel, because that's where they latch on. Those two things have worked for me perfectly. I've tried meds, and meds, honestly, haven't done the thing for me. At least that's my opinion. That's my 2 cents on battling it.
I agree with your opinion. I think it's a great point, and I've done that myself sometimes, and I found that it worked.
And one thing to, as a preventative action you can take is feed the fish garlic or garlic infused food or pellets. I try to use natural garlic. I'll just mash it up as fine as possible and just throw it in the tank. Fish, for some reason, love garlic. Garlic kills parasites. So it's a good way to keep their intestines clean. Also, since they are consuming it, their slime will extract it and also helps with it. But it's very good to keep your fish from getting hexamida. Hexamida is another one that, or white poop, like people call it, is very hard. That is one that I've had to actually inject the fish. Flowerhorns, to me, are the one most vulnerable to hexamida. So when I had that occur to one of my flowerhorns, I had to use a syringe without the needle. Then I would use Clear, is the medication. 2 capsules. It's a yellow capsule and a white capsule. I don't remember the chemicals in it. It is a Thai medication, but it works. I give you my word it does by experience, but it's a bit of a hassle to treat the fish because you have to treat it for 7 days, and you have to put the syringe through its mouth gently until you hit the stomach. Once you touch the stomach, then you inject it in. And after a week or so, you'll notice the fish starts eating again, starts coloring back, and it works. So I do recommend Clear when you're battling hexamitis. And as a preventative, feed food infused with garlic. There are a few foods out there that do come with it, like, example, New Life Spectrum, Terra A. It's infused with garlic. You also have For the discus, for example, I use pecan discus flakes, which are infused with garlic. So I try to use a lot of preventative foods and actions so I don't have to battle those diseases. And when you're bringing new fish, please quarantine them, because at first glance, it might look like they don't have anything. Maybe it's just starting. And then you put it in your tank and you basically spread it throughout the whole tank. Because what happens is they'll poop it, the other fish will come and eat it. And next thing you know, then another fish does it, and another one does it, and then you have a whole tank full of hexamitis, and eventually the fish start getting skinny, and they basically die of starvation because their bodies are not getting any type of nutrients. Because they eventually stop eating, or the food they eat, the parasite eats. And that happens
Very
a
well
lot
said.
when you get fish.
Very well said. I was going to say, I agree with you. It's really important to quarantine all new fish.
It's a hassle. I know people don't like doing it because you want to see your fish in your tank right away. But it can save you so much money that you've already invested in your tank, plus medication money, plus, you know, losing your pets. Because, I mean, yes, they're fish. People think, oh, yeah, they're fish, whatever. It's not a dog. But to me, they're like my dogs. They're my pets. Fish can live up to 10 years, 12 years. I mean, especially cichlids. These are fish that have the lifespan of a dog. So you want to keep it alive, so you do want to care correctly for it. So obviously you want to not introduce any bacteria, viruses, fungal diseases into the tank. Now, fungal diseases, to me, are the easiest to get rid of. I use methylene blue. It's really good for the fish in multiple ways because, number one, it completely fights fungus. Number two, it helps the fish absorb oxygen better. When I used to ship fish, I used to be a seller. I would import fish from Thailand and I would sell flowerhorns. And I would ship them all over the United States. Long story short, my son was born. Between my son and my job, I don't have the time anymore to be shipping fish. So I just stuck to the hobby. I used to use methylene blue inside the bag with treated water, so the fish would actually, number one, not catch any disease from stress and be able to absorb better oxygen from the water. Because you're shipping a fish and it can be stuck in a box for 2-3 days. I mean, I had an incident where it was 7 days and the fish was alive, very well alive. But there's a lot of preparation that comes behind that. I mean, you have to starve the fish for at least 3-4 days, so that way they poop less, so that's less nitrogen in the water. And you also have to treat the water that you're shipping them in. And aside of that, fill the bag with pure oxygen. So that was another science that I had to learn. I mean, I shipped, I don't know how many free fish just to start gaining reputation. And eventually it comes second nature. I mean, I could ship a fish and it was not a hassle. I wouldn't even stress about it if the package was delayed. But I do recommend always trying to get overnight shipping. Summertime, priority mail is fine, but from a reputable shipper. Do not do it from anyone, like a random person. And there's a lot of things that you learn with this. I mean, I've learned so much about water chemistry that I wouldn't have even imagined learning back in high school. There's so many factors to it, everywhere from from the nitrites, nitrates, pH, the hardness of the water, the ammonia in the water. There's so much things that come into play.
So speaking of water quality, in your opinion, what is the best filtration?
Well, my preference is canister filters. I do use hang on the back combined with canister filters. But to me, the canister filter, what it does is, it's like a sump. A sump is, I'd say, the number one. But it's a little bit more on the expensive side. So it's basically buying a tank and preparing a tank or buying a already set sump. Then you have to do all the plumbing. Canister filters are a lot simpler. But when you get a canister filter, that's an extra 5 to 7 gallons of water for your tank. So you have a 55-gallon tank, you're really dealing with 60 gallons of water. Now, the canister filter being, let's say, a 5-gallon one, has a lot more space for beneficial bacteria to grow. So that keeps your water a lot cleaner. Also, polishing water, to me, it works a lot better to keep your water clear. Because you can put so much media in it at your preference. Like in my case, sorry about the noise, I apologize. I have FX6. The FX6 is a great filter. It's amazing what you can do with it. And you can put so many polishing pads that the water stays crystal clear. And amongst that, there's other media you can use. Example, I'm a firm believer in Purigen. Purigen might be a bit expensive, but it is totally worth it. The Purigen helps keep that water pristine. It absorbs every bad chemical in the water, and it's reusable. All you have to do is follow the instructions, which are leave it 24 hours in Clorox or chlorine, and then you leave it 24 hours in tap water with Prime. And that what it does, it rejuvenates it again. So you can reuse it. It's not like carbon. Carbon lasts about 2-3 weeks tops. Once it's full, it'll start actually releasing those toxins. So carbon, wouldn't use. I would go with Purigen. Its benefits are way higher, and it's less maintenance, because changing carbon every 2-3 weeks to a month versus the Purigen lasts about 2 to 4 months before you have to reactivate it. You get more bang for your buck there. So filtration-wise, I'd say canister filters, but always using a combination of different filters in one tank is always beneficial. Because even though I have an FX6 in my 75 gallon, I still have I have two penguins in it, and I have one sponge filter in it also. So over filtration will never hurt it.
I agree 100% with you, and I like the combination of canister filters and hang on the back filters in aquariums. That's what I do myself.
Yeah, that's the best way to go. I mean, also because it keeps the water circulating a lot better. So, you don't have any blind spots, because the canister filter, you can set it up with the spray bar pointing towards the front of the tank. So what it does is the water is going to push it down, clean water, and that motion is going to lift the debris from the bottom. And then your hang on the backs are going to pick that up. And also your canister is going to pick it up through its intake. So it's techniques that I've learned through trial and error, and also researching and asking questions, asking people, hearing podcasts. I mean, it's a science that you really have to, if you're really going to get into the hobby, you have to learn these things, because if not, you're basically going to end up spending a lot of money on a tank, on fish, equipment, and in a month or so, you're going to get tired of it, because you keep on losing fish and you're not doing things correctly and you get frustrated. So research is the key, and always listening to advice, because none of us know more than anyone. Well, we're always learning. We all still make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I lost a fish the other day due to a mistake. I put the heater a bit too high, and my Texas, that was my green Texas, that was 8 inches, and he couldn't tolerate the heat. Now, my parrot cichlid, that was my blood parrot that was in the tank with him, because I was trying to make that Texas, had no issues. So it also has to do with researching what's the most the fish can tolerate. And that was something I overlooked. But you won't catch me doing it again. So,
sorry to hear that,
hobby.
That you lost your Texas.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I actually saw him pass away, because I tried to save him. He was still alive when I caught him, but when I changed the water, by the time the water was changed, he was gone. I mean, there's forms of reviving fish. I've seen it happen, but I tried to. What you have to do is gently grab the fish. You start opening and closing his mouth, and gently move him, so water goes through the gills and starts to oxygenate, and you can basically kind of CPR the fish. But no luck there. And that's because I caught him, I saw him pass away, so it was very recent. So that I've read and seen videos of people actually being successful at it, but it's something that I wasn't lucky enough to be able to do it. But it's a lesson learned, and I hope it helps someone else.
I'm sure it will. Well, I want to thank you for being a guest today. You did a great job talking about fish. I learned a lot.
I know I kind of was everywhere, but it's so much knowledge at the same time that you're sometimes your mouth will go faster, or your brain will go faster than your mouth, and you kind of get tangled there. But it's something I love, it's a passion. It turned into a passion, and I mean, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. Every night I'll Google different types of fish and different strategies, and on Facebook I'm in all these different groups, see what people do. I used to be, I don't know if you know about UFA, which is the United Flowerhorn Association. I used to be admin there. That's the biggest Flowerhorn Association right now. And they're the ones who hold the flowerhorn competitions and everything. But I didn't have the time, and I had to step down. But it's a very, very entertaining hobby. It's very stress relieving, and it makes you feel proud when you create this ecosystem. Like, example, my discus tank, which is a planted tank also. So I've had to learn about marine plants too. So there's always something new to learn. I mean, with fish, biology, never ending, which is, I'd say, the magical part of it. But one thing I would say, if you really get into it, you're going to get multi-tank syndrome. You're going to want to have multiple tanks. That is a given. I had 13 tanks at a time, and I had to downsize because it was just, I didn't have the space. And again, my son was born, and I didn't have the time to be cleaning so many tanks. So I'm down to 4 tanks now, and I think I'm good with that for now. I mean, I have what I want. I eventually want to get a bigger tank. It's just a bit of a hassle since I don't have a pickup, which is a problem. And the wife isn't so happy about me getting a bigger tank since she was so happy I got rid of so many tanks. But she understands it, and, she's let me keep what I have, and she loves the discus, so that's kind of my little trick there to keep my other hidden gems in my quote-unquote fish room garage. That's where I keep my other tanks. I only have one display tank in the house, which is the discus tank. And that tank does have other fish in it. I mean, I do have dwarf cichlids in it. I have flag cichlids. I have Bolivian rams. I have tetras, serpate tetras in it, Poridoras. I have bristle-nosed plecos. I have electric blue ram. I'm sorry, an electric blue acara. So that's a nice tank, a community tank to look at. I mean, when you're having South American cichlids, unless you have like a 200-gallon tank, then you can have a community, but you have to have a lot of them so they don't kill each other. You put two together, you end up fighting over territory, but the aggression disperses when you have a lot. So that would be a dream, to have at least a 250-gallon tank with, say, a few flowerhorns in it, a couple Midas, few green terrors, the Cubans, because the Cubans reach about 13 inches, so it would be a nice mix of colors in there. It would look beautiful, but for now, it's happy with what I have, and when I have more space, I will get that 250. I mean, it will happen.
That sounds great. I could tell you're passionate about the aquarium hobby and cichlids, and it was a pleasure having you on the show. I learned a lot today.
Yeah, I hope this helps a lot of people, and I really am honored, and I really appreciate your time and having me on the show, and I hope we can repeat this sometime soon whenever you have any other questions you want to go over, or I don't know what type of show you would like to do later on, so you can count on me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on the show again. This is a very informal show, and we'll definitely do another one. We could do a couple because there's so many topics we can cover.
Yeah, I mean, that would be easier if we do like a specific topic, so I'm not all over the place with all the cichlids. You know, we can do one maybe about if people are curious about Midas, because I'm pretty sure people ask questions. So depending on what they want to know about, and if they have like live questions, we can do like a live cast and people can share their questions, and I'm more than happy to help them out with the knowledge I have. I mean, I don't know everything, but with what I can help them, I will.
That sounds great. You have a great night. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll have you on the show again. And I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in to the second edition of Aqua Alex Live. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are looking forward to our third edition of Aqua Alex Live. If you'd like to be a guest, please email me at alexgoyankiescardinelli19@gmail.com, and we'll book you on the show. With that being said, have a great day, and thank you so much for listening to Aquarium Hobbyist Podcast.
And y'all have a good night, and thank you for having me.